Hi everyone who's just joined. If you could mute yourself, that would be great. And we'll be starting shortly. Um, okay, I mean, Lauren, should we kick things off? Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, hey everyone, thanks for kind of tuning in and taking the time out of your day, evening, wherever you are, to kind of hear the experiences from Dave and Tanash, and we're really excited to get started. So I guess over to Dave to introduce himself, and then we'll hear a bit about Tanash.
Sure. So I'm Dave. Great to meet y'all. I'm coming at you from New York in the United States. And I guess per my Zoom background, I consider myself an entrepreneur and author. And I love to start companies and then write books about that and business and my experiences. I'm not as good at running companies. I like to start them, grow them, and then let others do the really hard work of actually continuing to do all the challenging execution stuff. But I do love coming up with ideas and bringing them to reality. And I love this notion of entrepreneurship as well, and how can we think like an entrepreneur. So I'm excited to chat with y'all, and any question that I don't answer today, one of my personal core values is responsiveness, and so folks can reach me fairly easily on the internet and schedule time with me, as Matthew knows.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, and Tanash, do you want to? I know that Stephen's just come on now, so I guess hey.
Apologies, tech failure, internet failure, but we're back on now, so
that's good. Yeah, Tanash, so over to you, I guess, to kind of introduce a bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Well, so good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'd love to say I'm shouting out from New York, but I'm not. I'm shouting out from Rickmansworth, if any of you know where that is, just a little bit near Watford, so, and not as glamorous. But yeah, I'm a baby entrepreneur, so I've only been doing this 3.5, 4 years. I say 5, but actually it's been a little bit less. Just gets a little bit of weight. And actually, just before all of you guys got on, I was just saying to Dave, I want that badge, serial entrepreneur, when I grow up. Problem is, I'm 45 years old, so I don't know how much time I've got left to grow up. But
there's always time.
There's always time, 100%, right? So whatever I can share amongst, and learn from the team. We've got such a great panel this evening. I'd love to share with you guys and welcome questions. And yeah, I look forward to having a conversation with you guys. So yeah, thank you.
Cool. And over to Stephen, I guess.
Yeah, so I've actually moved from being in kind of big business for a great number of years, where I was an intrapreneur. I've actually moved into an entrepreneurial business. So I have spent probably the last 15 years of my career kind of sailing against the tide and being entrepreneurial, which in a large organization is never easy. And is probably not just a mindset, but is a kind of mind reset. And moved into now an environment where almost every obstacle or challenge or roadblock or whatever I had before has gone away. But in itself, that's interesting because I'm not swimming against resistance anymore. So how do I swim, and how fast do I swim, and how hard do I swim? So this is a really interesting conversation. I'm interested to have the debate.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, the first topic of conversation we were going to kind of talk about, which is obviously what a lot of people who are aspiring to become entrepreneurs or kind of want to go into different industries, they want to know about brand building, and like, how did you all start your careers and build yourself up?
Gentlemen.
My recommendation. Well, I was going to say, Matthew, call on people because it's hard on Zoom. It's very hard to read the cues. But sure, I can jump in. I'm definitely building brand is definitely one of my areas of interest and maybe expertise these days. But I think that the first thing is that we're building a brand with everything that we do, and everything that we post and everything that we write, really from a young age. I mean, my my daughter is 17 years old, and she's already built quite a brand online for herself. So I think, it's never too early and it's never too late, first of all. And thinking about the brand that we build in terms of every social network that we're on and every public element of what we do. And I think kids get that now and young people get that now, but they probably didn't a few years ago. But everything that you put out there is part of your brand forever. So it's important to remember that. I think that professionally speaking, LinkedIn has become a massively important element of building your sort of professional brand. And I've worked very hard at that. And I have a pretty large audience now, about 700,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I'll briefly share what I've done to do that in terms of what I think is replicable. I share a lot of content. I share at least 1 or 2 valuable pieces of content every single day. That's not all content that I've created myself. It's a lot of curation. It's a lot of content that I find elsewhere and share other people's content, because ultimately, people don't like look at all the bylines for what they're reading. They just look and they see it's good content that makes them feel good, and they remember that Dave's the guy that shared it. So I think that's one thing that's important. I've been very ambitious at building a network that's of people that are much more successful than I am, and I think that no matter who you are and how big your network was prior to this meeting right now, this Zoom, you can think, okay, well, who can I reach out to build my network? What influencers can I connect with that are more influential than I am? And I've done that with, all the sharks on Shark Tank and lots of really great entrepreneurs. And I've just reached out to them and offered them some value in exchange for asking something of them. Would you share my content? And you guys would be surprised. A lot of people, and like some very famous people, very successful people, very smart people way more successful and way smarter than I am, have helped me along the way. And so I would say that everyone on this call can probably do something similar. And the last thing I'll say on brand is finding your orange shoes. So for those of you that don't know, I wear orange shoes every day. It's harder to see on Zoom, I guess, but I usually wear an orange shirt too these days on Zoom. But I have 86 pairs of orange shoes. I wear a different pair of orange shoes every day. And it's something that, back in the days when we actually saw each other face to face, became my hallmark. It's something that was noticeable, a way that I could stand out. And so my question for you all, as you think about building your own brands, is, what's your version of the orange shoes, especially from the waist up, because that's what we see on Zoom. I've worked with some women that wear a different color flower in their hair, women that wore pearls every day, men that wear a certain, this is an interesting time to dress up at a time where everyone, panel included, is sort of dressing down. Maybe you're the guy that's always wearing a suit and tie on a Zoom. Or for the women, a fancy a ball gown. I'm not sure what that is, and this may be a little bit too American for some of you in the audience. But my challenge to you is, how can you build a brand that's consistent and that's memorable for the face-to-face interactions that you have as well?
Cool, thank you, Dave. And what do you think, Tanash? What have you got to add?
So it's really, I've learned a few things there, actually. I think for me personally, I find building the brand was very difficult for me, because whilst I'm very, very comfortable in my own skin, and I'm of a certain age, and the older you get, the more comfortable you become, I really struggled initially to have that voice on LinkedIn. So when you talk about LinkedIn, Dave, I completely get the value of that now. I didn't when I was a corporate guy, which wasn't so long ago. I really didn't. I used to check in on LinkedIn maybe once a week. Then the moment I left corporate and I started my own company, I realized actually I needed to find a voice. And actually it was my peers alongside me who were already very settled within social platforms, especially LinkedIn being the main one for certainly for businesses. And the way LinkedIn's changing as well, it's more content driven now, and there's a lot of information, a lot of those nuggets, those value pieces you're talking about. Creating that, I was so nervous about saying things, even the littlest paragraphs on LinkedIn, for fear of just so many demons and things in my head, like obstacles. But then actually, when I posted my first view, and then you got your likes, and it's it's amazing how then you look for likes, and I was telling my 11-year-old, there's more to life than likes. Likes is just, what is that? Let's get beyond that. But actually, I find myself now looking at who's liked it, who's commented. But just getting settled into that rhythm of being able to say things and being comfortable with what you're saying. And I'm actually very, very safe about what I put out there as well. I don't actually say it's anything too controversial. I know there's people who, I think they sometimes do it on purpose to go out there, and maybe that's their brand. To actually ignite and trigger conversation, which is also good, and debate. But I always get scared that that's just me. It's just a personal thing. If I say something and I've offended somebody, that I can't live without my conscience. It's just my brand or my thing. What is my thing? I've grown long hair since I left offices, and you can't see them, but I have checkered Vans. So I'm a pretty cool 45-year-old, I must say, and I'm a pretty cool dad. And I always wear black t-shirts. That's my thing. I've kind of just bought a whole bunch of the same All Saints black t-shirts, and every morning I don't have to make any decisions. I think all my friends and people who don't know me think I must be off the street or something, right? Because it's the same look. But that, from a physical perspective, when you said about the orange t-shirt, I was thinking, oh God, mine's black and I've got long hair and checkered Vans. I must look like a skateboarder to most, right? But that's just me and my skin, and I'm comfortable with that now. So find your voice. And I do like that, Dave. If you've got an outfit or something you're comfortable with, absolutely grow into it and make that your own thing, right? So yeah, that's me.
So I think the really key thing is to be authentic, and I know that's a much overused word, and I was contemplating as I was thinking about what I was going to say, whether I'd use it, but I really think that's true. I think neither try and be controversial for controversy's sake, nor hold back on what you believe. I think it's really important that you are authentic to what it is you have to say, because ultimately, if you want to be successful, you want to be successful with people that are going to value the thing that you believe. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is to be really careful about, I mean, Dave made the point about releasing valuable content, is you've got to share something. You know, you can't do these kind of teasers about, hey, I just had a great meeting with Jack and we discussed some really interesting, I mean, that crap, quite frankly, on social, and it just drives me nuts. But also what I call the serial taggers. So the people that just, oh, here's an interesting article I read, use my entire email box or my entire LinkedIn connection list to tag and to get on. There has to be a purpose to what you're saying. So it starts with you, like why am I doing what I want to do? And how do I articulate that to other people so that they find that that's valuable? And you shouldn't be worried about giving away information or intelligence, because if you believe in what you believe, you're always going to be generating new ideas and new thoughts and whatever. So it's not like knowledge is the one thing that when shared doesn't deplete. Money depletes or water depletes, but knowledge is that thing that if you share, it actually grows. So, you know, be authentic, be the real you. Even if that's a little bit sweary. My job title is Vice President of Get Shit Done. And that is a statement of intent, right? That people have no doubt that you're going to help them if that's your job title. But be authentic.
Yeah. And just to add to that, right, Stephen, I think the authentic piece is when you give yourself, when you expose yourself and give yourself out there to the universe, there are other people who actually who are they want to hear that information. They're ready for that information, and actually they're more ready to hear it and accept it. And that's what I found. I mean, my journey, it was very, very tough. We'll talk about it in a minute, I guess. But mine was very tough. And actually, when I found myself and I found my own voice and my brand, actually, it was surprising how many people then connected with me, saying, actually, I'm in the same boat. And I didn't realize that. You know, I thought I was going to be vulnerable. But the reality of it is, there's so many people who are in the same situation, the same time, the same place in life. Actually, you naturally they draw to you and your brand. So yeah, I do like that.
I guess as well for me and Lauren, I mean, this event wouldn't have been possible unless we kind of took the Dutch courage and kind of just reached out to you. And, you know, obviously you get rejection and all the rest of it, but like, it's worth shooting your shot. Otherwise you just don't know if like, if otherwise there's no point, is there? But yeah, no, I mean, the next question we were going to kind of talk about was, you know, at what point did you decide, right, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? Because I know that for all of you, it's been very different stages when you decided, but Dave, when did you decide? I know it was probably quite young.
Well, you know, actually, no. I would say it's older than you might think. I was always very entrepreneurial in my thinking, but I think it wasn't until after my wedding, I got married. I had a very entrepreneurial wedding. We ended up getting married at a baseball a game, and we sold sponsorships to all of our wedding vendors to cover the costs of $100,000 wedding, which was amazing. And after the wedding, I realized that, you know, I was good at sales and sort of creating something out of nothing. And so my wife and I started our first business. I was 30 years old already at the time. So I think the key is whether you are watching this at the age of 12 or 72, really, there's no better time than the present to become an entrepreneur and to you know, whether it's a side hustle during a full-time job or you know, sort of going all in. I think that you can always pursue an idea or pursue an entrepreneurial vision or dream, but pursue it with the rigor and caution that is most appropriate. So what do I mean by this? Well, if you're 19 years old and you have no husband, no wife, no kids, no mortgage, you can probably go all in on something. If you are, you know, in your 40s and you have a wife and a kid and a mortgage, it's probably going to be a side hustle to start, but that's fine either way, and you can go accordingly. I was a school teacher for 3 years leading up to my wedding, and when after we got married, you know, we had this idea to start a business, but we had a young child, and we weren't going to jump in 100%. So my wife said to me, it was summer vacation, and she said, you know, because I was a teacher, so I wasn't working over the summer. She said, go see if you can get at least 3 clients in at least, I don't know, it's probably $10,000 a month of revenue. Then we can go all in on this. And so, you know, being a sales guy and being a driven guy, I hit the phones, and by the end of the summer, I had, you know, 6 clients and enough revenue to go full time and to be able to pay for health insurance for our child, which was ultimately really, really important. So of course you have to take into consideration your liabilities and your obligations, but I think entrepreneurship is something that absolutely can be pursued at any point in anyone's life or career.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, cheers. And Tanesh, tell us about you.
So I'm that older guy you're talking about. So, you know, I was 41. I had 2 young daughters. I had a corporate job, a very good corporate job, and I was stuck in the race. To be fair, you know, you get to some point in your career when you either go to senior leadership or well, you go to senior leadership or you kind of stay where you are, right? Mine was a combination of, it was a January morning, it was cold, I got called in, as they call you in just before Christmas. What are you doing this date in January? And my heart sunk because I knew I was going to be made redundant or something like that. And rocked into the office and I got made redundant. Left that building and I'll never forget it because I thought, okay, wow, I've just come back from this holiday with my family. Her Majesty's Revenue had sent me a VAT, some tax bill from 1975, so I was already up against it. My wife had found her dream home, which I'm living in right now. I love this home, really. and I've just been made redundant. So you could imagine any rational person would have said, park any idea or notion of going to start your own business. You know, we'll do this. But me, basically, I went and did my thing, and you know, I'm a cyber guy, and I started my cybersecurity consulting business, and it was tough. It's still tough every single day. There's not a single day it's not tough. But I'm so glad I did it, and 3.5, 4 years in now. I mean, I've even written a book about it. It's called Startup ... What the Fudge Cracker, and well, the boards. This is my dim mood lighting back when it talks about the real journey of what it's like to be an entrepreneur, not the glamorous stuff that most people recognize with the word entrepreneur. And to be fair, even to today, I'm not comfortable with the word entrepreneur. You know, it still makes me feel like, oh, yeah, you're an entrepreneur. I'm just really a business, you know. But yeah, that was my journey. It was a combination of things. Should have gone back to work really, but decided not to and fancied my chances, and I did okay. So yeah.
Cheers, and Stephen.
Yeah, so I was an entrepreneur for a large number of years, and I think I did that for a number of reasons, not least because there's some security, because there's a wage packet, which is nice, but also is a bit of a shackle, right? You know, it is hard to walk away from a fairly big corporate job, but I did it for a number of years, and that comes with its own challenges. So, you know, the quid pro quo is you get the salary, but you also get all of the upstream stuff you're having to deal with and you're swimming against, and all of those things. I think you either know you are an entrepreneur or you don't. I think deep down inside of you, you know, and it might not be obvious like at 19, it might not be obvious in your 40s like some of us, but I think you know inside. Then I just think it's down to timing. I mean, timing in life is everything, and either it's an event that prompts it, or it's you just can't do the old thing anymore, or whatever it is, or your idea is of a time or whatever. I think that's key. So, you know, I talk a lot about the Greek gods Kronos and Kairos, and Kronos is the god of chronological time, so he measures days and months and weeks and whatever, and Kairos is the god of appropriate time. And I think that's a really important thing, you know, to understand is you shouldn't measure, oh, I'm going to do it this time next year, I'm going to do this next week, or I'm going to think about it, constantly be thinking about it. If you're a real entrepreneur, you won't be able to stop thinking about it, but do it when the time is right. And when the time's right, you'll kind of know.
Thank you. Yeah, cheers. I mean, this is all great. And I just wanted to say, obviously, like, cheers for all of you for kind of giving up your time to kind of share your thoughts. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box throughout, and we'll you know, get to them when we get time. But Lauren's going to take over now. Thank you again for everyone being quite understanding that I have to go sit shiver. But, you know, I hope this is helpful for everyone. So have a good session.
Take care, Matthew.
Sorry for your loss. Take care.
Yeah, take care.
So what were your kind of initial steps in building your like respective companies? So Dave, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I've built 6 companies. So I would say that I've gotten a lot better at it through the years. So rather than tell you the initial steps for the first couple companies and all the mistakes I made, I'll share what I do now for the last couple companies. The internet is such an amazing thing, and it gives us so much opportunity to test things. And so what I'm all about is test and iterate and get feedback, whether it's products, marketing strategy, sales strategy, book covers. I mean, the amazing thing is that, you know, the internet and social media is like a 24/7, 365 focus group. And so when we're thinking about finding product market fit and whether an idea is viable and to at what scale it's viable, these are all things that have just massive opportunity to test using social media. And so, you know, I found myself, you know, recently, I actually don't even remember what it was, because I do think of so many ideas. And of the 6 businesses I sort of said that I've started and grown, there's probably been 50 ideas that didn't make it because I used the internet to test and find out that they were stupid, bad ideas or whatever, or foolish, or not the right time. Like Stephen said, timing is so important in business. So often we're too early or too late, and we have to just sort of get it right in order to win. But it was a business idea, and my mentor said, okay. I don't think he liked the idea, but he said, okay, well, here's what I think you should do. Develop a website, and you can have a sales page for it, and take it all the way to the checkout page. And then obviously you then give people a message saying, you know, we're actually not for sale quite yet, but you know, thank you for your interest. And I said, wow, that's kind of crazy. Do all that work. He said, well, that's the only way to find out how viable it really is. And by the way, you still aren't going to spend a lot of money because you don't have to build a team. You can just build a basic, you know, WordPress site basically for free, just to see whether people would actually buy it. So I did, and nobody bought it. And I realized, wow, this is not a good idea. So I think that we make a much bigger deal out of building a business, launching a business, becoming an entrepreneur. And instead, if we said, okay, well, it's one step at a time, let's test this, let's ask people, let's do a survey. This is all basically free or very, very low cost to find out just how much interest there is, just how much excitement there is, fill in the blank. And I think that I think when we do that, it's a really great way to sort of ease our way into things. And then, of course, if things go well, we scale up. I mean, I launched a business earlier this year. Unfortunately, my mom passed away, and we did a virtual memorial service for my mom. And I thought, wow, this is actually like pretty good, and like probably a lot of people are going to need to do this. And so we sort of tested the idea with a few people, and they all did it and loved it. And then we said, all right, we'll build the business. And, you know, 200, we've now helped 200 families grieve through this latest business. And then we've just expanded from online funerals to online weddings and bar bat mitzvahs to now we're going to do a ton of online office parties, because basically every company on the planet has a budget for a holiday party, but isn't doing a face-to-face, an in-person holiday party. So now they can use us. So, but it's one step at a time: test, validate, iterate, scale, and that's really the process that I've learned that actually can work.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds amazing. That's very productive lockdown. What about you, Tanis?
You know, I was just going to say, this is how an entrepreneur thinks. When he said that, I thought, I know 1.6 billion Hindus right now are looking forward to celebrating Diwali. And I think we should talk after this call, right? So that is a classic example of entrepreneurialism. As soon as he said that, I thought, well, hold on a second. Just in my immediate family, I've got about 8,000 bazillion members, right? So, you know, and they're all dying to get out there and celebrate the Festival of Lights. So, yeah, I mean, so what exactly that? I did exactly the same thing. I went out to the market. I've been in cybersecurity forever. So for me, it was always going to be in a space which I was comfortable with. I think that's very, very important to make sure you're comfortable with what you do. I love cyber. I call myself a cyber hero. I'm passionate about my space, and that kind of helps me get along with the stuff I do. So when I did go out and validate what the idea was with the platform we built, I went to both users and I went to both corporates. These are people I've kind of grown up with in the industry, and literally I asked everybody, I asked people who were in cyber, people who weren't in cyber, just to validate the very idea, you know, this idea of creating this marketplace for cyber. I often find when I talk to people, because you do get asked, like, you know, I've got this idea, and I said, have you spoken to people about it? Have you validated it? And sometimes I get a response like, well, I don't want to, and I ask, why not? And they say because they're scared of what the answer might be, that it may be, oh, because it's rubbish, or because there's not enough market. And I've been there a couple of times over the last sort of 10 years when there were some ideas and I used to float them past people, and then people used to poo-poo them, and then literally 4 months later the idea's done by a plumber or an electrician, and I'm thinking, and they're worth £1 gazillion, and you're like, oh my god, I came up with that idea, you know. And so you have to stop that, because you're an obstacle to yourself, number one. Number two, absolutely get the idea validated. I couldn't agree more, because it will just save you heartache in the future, because you'll go and build it and then no one wants it, and you're not solving a problem, and what you've done is spent a lot of money, so and time and energy. So get it validated, but also don't worry about negativity and all that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of people out there that just don't get it, and they may be coming from a place of love and care and they mean well, but the reality of it is they're in their world, you're in this, you've got this thing you want to do, and you want to start on this new journey. So absolutely do that. So for me, it was very much the same as Dave, really. Through conversations like this, you pick up an idea, and I really do want to follow that idea, by the way, Dave. But more, equally, it was just validating it with my community and friends and family. And you know what? Roll with it. Absolutely roll with it. If it makes sense, roll with it.
100%. Now, Stephen, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I don't think I was never going to be an entrepreneur for being an entrepreneur's sake. So I wasn't the person who goes, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea if we put mayonnaise and tuna in a can, or that kind of stuff. I was never that kind of person. I know what I know, and actually I don't know that much. I know the arena in which I operate really deeply, and I really understand that. And kind of, so for me, it was there has to be a better way of doing this. That was the burning thing, is there has to be a better way of doing this. And I tried it for years as an entrepreneur, and I had some success, but I kind of came to the natural end of the line on what I could do as an entrepreneur. And I knew, because I knew the industry narrowly but deeply, what else could be done. And therefore, I had to make the step to be able to take it to the next stage. So I don't think, if I wasn't doing this, I'd be running a successful coffee chain or something like that. That's not me. But it was just, I felt the only way of making the changes I needed to make was to be master of my own destiny to a certain extent. And therefore, I had to be able to make the calls I needed to make, and be able to make the investments I wanted to make, and be able to focus my attention on the things I wanted to focus my attention on. And therefore it just became a burning imperative rather than a need for me to be an entrepreneur.
And how important has, technology and all of that kind of space been to each of your businesses as you've kind of scaled up, and also in the COVID world or post-COVID world now? Dave, if you want to start off.
I can start. Before I do, I want to just add on to one thing Tanesh said about sharing your idea, because what I get a lot is people that say, well, I have this great idea, but can you sign an NDA before I tell you? Because I don't want you to steal my idea. I'm not signing an NDA ever. That's just not how the world works. And the thing is, nobody's going to steal your idea. So if you have an idea out there, you have to get it out and talk about it and get feedback on it. You really do. And anyone that's thinking, I can't tell people because they're going to steal my idea, I want to urge you that in the real world, it's just not the case. And I know maybe there's lawyers that disagree with me, but I just, that has not been my experience. And so I would urge you guys to get your idea out there. The thing is, unfortunately, the reality is ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. It's not a big deal to have an idea. What's a big deal is taking that idea and shaping that idea into something that's really viable, and then actually executing on that idea to actually help people and create value from that idea. That no one is going to people are going to hear your idea and be like, either bad idea or great idea. They might think it's the best idea ever. They're not stealing your idea to go build a business. They're not an entrepreneur. So, or they're an entrepreneur, but if you told me the best idea ever, I have 100 other ideas. So go do it. I'll help you, but I'm not taking your idea. So just a quick rant. Now, you asked me about technology. Technology is important. I would say that the reality is, and one thing I learned along the way, my first company was and is a marketing agency. And I got the technology bug, and I built a software company, and I raised several $1 million from venture capitalists. And, that company hasn't frankly enjoyed the same success that some of my other companies have enjoyed. So I think that we tend to glamorize and glorify VC-backed businesses, and some of them are awesome. And I mean, you know, I have nothing against Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or, you know, any of these enormous companies. That's wonderful. But, you know, for every sort of billion-dollar unicorn, there's going to be many, 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 many failed attempts at that. And so I'm here to say that if you have a company or if you have an idea for a business that's not necessarily tech-based, that's okay too. Entrepreneurs and small business owners make the world go round. You do not need to have a billion-dollar idea in order to, you know, create a lot of great impact in the world and create a great life for yourself. So there are lots of different ways to do this. And even with a so-called lifestyle business, you can still use technology, tech-enabled. You can use technology to build your brand, as we talked about. You can use technology to make things a little bit better and a little bit faster for your customers. You don't have to be all in on the technology thing.
Dinesh, what do you have to add to that?
So I genuinely feel like the baby entrepreneur, because we just raised our first amount last week. Yay! So, you know, my company's worth a gazillion pennies now, right? So, yeah, Mrs. Trias happy. Let me tell you that, right? Finally, I'm getting some pay. But the technology piece, right? So, of course, right? So, we are a technology company, and what happened for us is we're a very human company, and then COVID made us rely on technology. So actually the last 6 months, we've really got into the rhythm of technology. You know, WhatsApp is probably my biggest tool that we use. We've got lots of little groups, you know, marketing, sales, customer success, and we've got everything on WhatsApp. And then we use all these wonderful platforms, which I, by the way, loathe all of them. You know, all of these project management ones. I'm going to mention the names, it's not good practice, but, you know, just, I can't be done with them. And all the notifications my engineers set up, they move an ounce this way, like a millimeter this way, and I get a notification. I'm like, guys, I don't need a notification that you've left the bedroom. Yeah, I'm just not interested. Stop flooding me with this stuff, right? And then there's another one called Clocky. Sorry, no names, but, you know, it's just, so actually I've gone the other way. Whilst I absolutely love tech, and there was a moment I was really with tech, you know, I was like, even with my 11-year-old, I was like, hey man, I've got this tech, have you, blah, blah, blah. The reality of it is, as soon as we get out of COVID, I am getting an office, and I'm going back old school. And we're going to be sitting there, and we're going to be talking and lifting our heads up like we used to, and going to, you know, Pret and Starbucks, and just going back to, I say old school, what we were doing in February. And I don't want to be so reliant on tech, personally. We'll use it for where we need to use it, for the functional stuff and the technical teams and all the rest of it. But some of us others, you know, and I think it's probably just me and one other, the over 40s. We're just going to go back a little bit old school and just keep it a little bit real and touch people and, you know, connect. I'm desperately missing that human side right now. And also, I share my office with a rabbit at the moment. You know, that's never a good thing. She's got the best hutch in the UK, I reckon. So, you know, what do you do when you're in COVID? You buy animals. So we bought a rabbit, and yeah. So technology, rabbits, back old school. So yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, Stephen, what do you have to add to that?
So of course, technology makes so many things so much easier. My team stretch from Australia to the West Coast, but it also brings its own challenges. You know, I was telling someone just now, to have a team meeting, I've got somebody in Australia, I've got somebody in Israel. The Israel adds the complication because that doesn't allow you to, like, Australia to West Coast is okay because you can flip like either side. The Israel thing creates an anchor, right, for where you are, which means the only time we can meet is 9 p.m. And that's kind of okay for me, but that's not great for the guy in Israel because that's 11 p.m. and the guys in Krakow, that's 10 p.m. and the guy in Australia, that's 7 a.m. And so whilst it's great that we can all be connected, actually it creates a whole bunch of other challenges too. I think the other thing, kind of coming to Tinesh's point, is when you've worked with people physically and then this then happens. So I talk to my friends who are in organizations where they've been forced to go online, you know, Zoom, et cetera. They've got a whole bunch of historic relationships. You know, remember that time when we were in the pub and we, you know, all of those things to share, and therefore there's a kind of shorthand and a whatever, and finding a way and I don't know yet what the answer is, but I think what's really important is to try and find a way in which you can create intimacy even when you don't have intimacy. So, having a difficult conversation with someone, you're on the screen, but you can't see what their hands are doing. You can't really tell what their body language is doing. People are able to hold it together because actually you're not physically in the same room. So to have a difficult conversation isn't a difficult conversation and a follow-up. It's a difficult conversation and a clarification, and then a follow-up, and then a clarification, and then so actually that kind of adds time. And I think technology is great. It opens up huge amounts of opportunity, but it also brings some challenges, like human challenges, which Tanesh brought out, that I think we're still to really understand what that means. And I think, depending on what your entrepreneurial venture is, I think that will either be harder or easier to deal with.
And speaking of like challenges, how has COVID impacted each of your businesses? And do you think that because of COVID, you've got more engagement, I guess, online, if a lot of your LinkedIn posts are online and things like that? What do you think about that, Dave?
Yeah, so COVID's impacted a lot of folks' businesses in different ways, and it's a huge range. So unfortunately, I know quite a few entrepreneurs for whom COVID has really hurt their businesses a lot, like 80%, 90% down. Obviously restaurants and hotels and airlines, and there's quite a few verticals that have been hurt very, very significantly. Fortunately, our businesses actually are in the opposite. We've been helped a lot. Our social media businesses happen to work with a lot of grocery clients, and which grocery has been kind of through the roof since COVID, as you guys probably know or could imagine. Apprentice is a company of mine where we connect entrepreneurs and business leaders with the world's brightest college students that serve as their executive assistant, marketing coordinator, and that business was remote before COVID, right? People were working from their college campuses, so that business has actually been helped quite a bit. And then, as I mentioned, COVID really caused this latest business to start. There's no way I would have. I mean, when I was a kid, if you had said you will be an online funeral director, I mean, I never imagined I would be a funeral director, and I never imagined there would be an online funeral. The concept is, even 3 years ago, if you had said that, I would have thought that's the craziest thing you've ever said. But I think the key issue is COVID sucks, obviously. And what entrepreneurs do is they see problems and they solve them. And so the thing is, that can happen at any time in the world. And so just because, in fact, there are more problems because of COVID, which tells me there's going to be even more entrepreneurs, hopefully one on this call watching right now, who can think of a problem that's related to COVID and help solve it and help us get this freaking planet back to a better place. So COVID sucks, but entrepreneurship is good.
Quick turnaround testing in a pharmacy. There you go. You can go to your local pharmacy and get tested, get the results for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Although anyone who ever saw that great documentary on, was it called The Innovator, on Theranos, the blood
thing. Yeah.
There's a cautionary tale there.
Yeah.
Well, yes, be authentic, as we said earlier, and tell the truth. But yeah, I think the truth is COVID has hurt a lot of businesses, and I want to be respectful of that. And I still continue to take a positive outlook every single day. And part of that positive outlook is what entrepreneurs like me, like Tanesh and Stephen, and like hopefully some folks on this call that are watching can do about the problems that we have. So yes, COVID really, really sucks, and it's really hurt a lot of people, and it's, a lot of people are dead, and it's like literally nothing's worse than that. At the same time, crises demand solutions, and entrepreneurship helps facilitate solutions to problems large and small. And I continue to believe that entrepreneurship can be a big part of our way out.
And Tanesh, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing we learned is, imagine we had this idea 18 months ago, we built 15 months ago, and then we were about to launch in May. And we had this plan for May. No, this is pre-COVID. And all of a sudden COVID came, and we were like, oh, holy moly. And we launched in April, right? 4 weeks after COVID. And it was really, really tough, really tough. What we did do though, is we recognized that this is gonna, well, first off, it slowed a whole bunch of things down. Then you think about cash flows, because you're a startup, you're bootstrapped, so that was a big hit for us. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to find some money. I considered being an Uber driver for a while, literally all these thoughts, but even that was drying up. I was like, what the hell, London was shutting down. But then what we did is we pivoted. We looked at what we had, but then we looked at video content. We looked at creating online stuff and pivoted the business. And actually what our traditional business is, we don't even focus on that when we talk to our potential, members now. We talk about the online stuff, the more content-driven stuff, and the video, and actually the fact that sales guys aren't going on the road at the moment. They're not getting into their car, driving up the M1 to, from London to wherever to go and talk to a client. So we decided, why don't we just automate that, create videos, and that's what we did. And actually, though we don't have that many videos, that's the thing we're getting asked for the most, right? And so we pivoted, and we've got the platform, and we'll continue to do so. And looking at bringing in more innovative ways of trying to help, our users. That hasn't changed for us. Our goal is still to connect people and do what we do. It's just that we're now having to pivot, exactly the word, and change and switch up and change and be more innovative with the way we do things. It's not great, but not by long. Even with the investment, there's still a long journey ahead. But we, as long as we keep on doing, we've got half a chance actually, and that's all we can say at the moment, right?
And Stephen, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think COVID, like anything else, presents a risk and an opportunity, and for some people it will decimate their businesses, and for other people it will throw opportunity, as the gold rush did for people that produce, not for the gold miners, they basically lost loads of stuff, but people that produced the panniers and the shovels and the horses and all of those things. And it's, I suppose it's a difficult thing for people to say, hey, COVID's been great for me, I'm doing really great in business, when there's so much misery out there in the world, and people are dying and all of those things. But inevitably, with any big change, will drive risks and opportunities. And some people's businesses, because they were geographically located or relied on footfall or whatever, will suffer, and others that offer something different then won't. I've just read a really interesting book actually called Head, Heart and Hand, which is the difference between head workers, cognitive workers, hand workers and heart workers, and how for many years we've seen head workers get an unfair share of the spoils. So entrepreneur has always been, or most recently has been, about head workers. I've got a smart algorithm, I've got this, I've got that, and I think that will always be true. But I do think in a post-COVID world that the opportunity for entrepreneurs in the heart and the hand space will be increasingly important. If we think about also the threat of technology generally to head work, or a lot of head work that had been done, in a more standardized way, actually the caring professions might present new opportunities. So what I would urge anyone thinking about this is, don't think about it like, don't look to what other people have done that's been successful, which is, I have to build a social media platform, I have to build an app, I have to build this, I have to build that. But find real stuff that real people need, and you can deliver either better or more cheaply, or ideally both, and find a way to do that.
And just following on from that, what I'd love to know is one bit of advice that each of you would have to your kind of younger self now, if you were to start a business, you know, in this kind of crazy time, if you're like kind of my age, like 21-ish kind of age, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Take a really long holiday.
That sounds wonderful. Dave, what do you think about that?
Take more risks, believe it or not, because again, I didn't start till 30. I wish I had started at 20, 21, 22. Think less about the idea and more about the team. Ideas will almost always change. I mean, Tanesh described a pivot. Every one of my businesses had various pivots along the way. It's just the chances that what you're thinking right now is exactly the same thing that's going to end up being the perfect product market fit and the scalable business idea, it's basically zero, right? I mean, there's basically no chance that you in your head right now, or any of us in our heads right now, have the exact right thing. I can promise you with all my businesses, they'll all continue to change. So it's less about the idea and more about the willingness to take risk and the partners, the team, the other people that you can get on board with you, because this stuff is very, very hard to do, period. It's that much harder to do alone. It's so hard to do alone. And so I would really urge everyone to find partners, find help, find similar tribesmen, to use like a Seth Godin term, find people that are like-minded, that want to work on something, whatever your idea might be and might become, with you.
Amazing. And Tanesh, do you have any one piece of stellar advice?
So mine is, I'm going to leave you with a saying, and it's my own saying. So for me, I had a really tough first year, really bad, because I had lots of responsibilities. And so whether you're young or older, whatever your responsibilities are, because you may not, you may have some even when you're younger, right? I had a thing where, you hear that saying, you're out of the woods. We're out of the woods. Thank God we're out of the woods. I believe that I'm always in the woods. I'm always in the woods. Sometimes it's cold, it's frozen, it's dark, it's muddy, and I can't see nothing. And I just think to myself, oh my God, this is like the worst day, week, month. And then sometimes the wood clears up. It's like a sunny morning, and the sun's coming through, and I'm running through the fields, but I'm always in the woods. I'm never actually out of it. I thought, oh, when I get to this point, I'll be out of that mental mindset. When I'm at that point, when I'm going to get my raise, I'm going to be, but you know what? That's brought a whole new set of challenges, right? So the reality is, it will get tough. You will get lonely. Do talk to people. Give yourself a break. Self-care, I talk about mental health, so look after that. You've got to. But remember, you're always in it, because otherwise, you know what? You can happily go and get 9 to 5, right? But when you do this, acknowledge that you've just got to take care of number one. And that, for me, that's a very personal thing. So, and we're always in the woods.
Amazing. Stephen, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I read a quote which I absolutely love, and it's true of anything in life, which is 50% of success is just turning up. And that's true if you're trying to lose weight, or you're trying to get fit, or whatever you want to do, whatever you're aspiring to do, whatever the habit is that's going to take you to where you want to get to. If you don't make it a habit to turn up and do that thing, then you're never going to be successful. So I think, kind of to Tinesh's point, when it's hard, is just realize that you're already halfway there just by turning up. You've got to do a whole bunch of other stuff as well, right? The difference between 50 and 100 is huge. But if you're not committed to just turning up every day and doing it, then you're never going to be successful.
Amazing. What a great note to end on. Perfect timing as well. That was really well timed, guys. But just thank you so much to all three of you for your time tonight. I'm sure everybody in the audience found that really valuable. And also don't forget to check out Dave's book. I know Matt's been reading your latest work. He's going on about how amazing it is. And also Tanesh's new book too. I don't know whether, Stephen, you have anything to plug.
No, Dave and Tanesh's book both sound fantastic though.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Copies, please, guys.
Thanks for having us, Sky. This has actually been fun, and it's been really a blast meeting you and chatting with you, Tanesh and Stephen as well.
Yeah, guys.
Maybe we'll start a business together. Who knows? That would
Told
be
you.